welcome everyone here on this panel and in the audience. So thanks for attending. So first of all, I would like to give a short introduction about my panels. I'm very happy because it's a very complementary group of people with different skills and expertise and also different types of experiences they can bring on the table. So first of all, let me quickly introduce, and then I will leave the floor to them. We would like to structure these panels in 3 parts. So the first is sort of a very short keynote from each of them on the topic, which is as a service submissions, what is the trade-offs between benefits and security risks from their perspective and their specific sector and business. Then we're going to have a couple of questions which I'll ask about the challenges in their specific domains of operations, as well as lessons learned on how to address them. And lastly, of course, but still very importantly, we'll answer questions from the audience. So without further ado, let me first introduce my first panelist here on the left hand from my side. So here is Giovanni Pandolfi, which is a co-founder and CEO of Leafspace. Leafspace is an emerging startup in Italy, very much growing on the concept of ground segment as a service. So please, Giovanni, give me your statement about the topic of this panel right now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Carla. Yeah, so we're a Leafspace. We're a ground segment as a service provider. We started a few years ago with this, with this mobile. Before there was the as a service buzzword, let's say, at least in the space sector. Right now it's getting more and more common to have these kind of solutions and this kind of, let's say, shared infrastructure, managed infrastructure. So I believe it's a good evolution of the market in that direction. It means that there is a more of a natural economy and sustainable supply chain and so on. So it's definitely more interesting. But at the end of the day, the as a service just have someone else naturally take the burden of something, of infrastructure in our case, to actually ease your way of working, the focus, and so on. And yeah, that's my view.
Okay, thank you very much. So then next it's Gerardo. Gerardo Richarte is a founder and CTO of Satellogic. And Satellogic, in fact, provides constellation as a service. Could you please further elaborate on that? And then
Yes. We used to call it dedicated constellation services, or dedicated constellation, right? We are a company who designs and manufactures satellites and then operates them to first provide imagery to our customers. Our satellites are Earth observation satellites. So we started selling images, but soon we discovered that some people needed their own constellation. And since we have now 34 satellites in orbit, we can very easily take a subgroup of the satellites and dedicate it to a customer over a particular area of the world, right? So it's a shared infrastructure in orbit, shared satellites, and for many customers it makes a lot of sense because they want to make sure they have the capacity they need to cover their area of interest. So they commit to some capacity, and that's a subset of the constellation, right? And then we take all the burden of building and launching the satellites and operating the satellites, upgrading the satellites, and maintaining and making sure they work. And then since we have more satellites, if there's a maintenance window in the satellite, we can pull another satellite into the constellation. So for many customers, it makes a lot of sense, right? And luckily, with our constellation, we don't have a single customer. So it's always going to be some sort of shared satellite constellation usage. What we call a dedicated constellation is, now we call it actually constellation as a service, is that commitment to a particular area and subset of satellites, right? So that's pretty much what we call constellation as a service.
Very nice, and thank you for the explanation. Very interesting indeed. So next, so we have Dieter Bierek, which is CEO of OHB Digital. Okay, you're gonna, you changed, Stefan, sorry. And Digital Connect, so OHB Digital Connect, that provides solutions and services for all kinds of connectivity from ground to space. But please tell us more about your services, in fact, and how this connects to the topic of today. Thank you very much.
Yes, so Dieter unfortunately couldn't make it, so I'm standing in for him. At OHB, we've been offering satellites services, especially in orbit validation or in orbit testing and lowest orbit campaigns for government satellites, so big, large satellites for many years. But we're also now building what we call a multi-mission control center. So a new offering to new space and all kinds of companies, also with a focus on in-orbit testing and low Earth orbit. And yes, the specialty is we still see ourselves as an integrator, so we're offering this as a service, but this will still be a highly customized service. So if a special customer tells us, I need this, then we will somehow make this happen. For example, also customers can bring their own satellite operations software, and we will try to integrate it. And in my role, I'm basically an in-house consultant for cybersecurity. And of course, this creates very interesting opportunities with these kinds of shifting targets. And yes, so.
Yeah, very good. Then we'll talk about challenges later, indeed. So then, next is from Leanspace. So we have Guillaume Tanier, sorry for my French, it's not great, co-founder and CEO of, in fact, this new startup that wishes to provide a platform as a service and innovative cloud applications based on open API. But correct me if I'm wrong, please tell us more.
Yes, thanks, Carla. Thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Guillaume. I'm one of the co-founders of Leanspace. We are a new player around, I would say. We are 3 years old. We are a French company. We are around 40 people already. We grew quite a lot because we are looking at a very painful problem today in the space industry, I believe. You had cut the cost a lot in the launchers. You can launch mass much cheaper now. You have cut cost a lot in the satellite. You have standardized, modularized, reduced the size of components. So all this is much easier, much cheaper, but we haven't really done anything on the ground. And we are trying to do the same, cut costs drastically by making it much easier. And the biggest pain point, I mean, my colleagues here have solved the hardware side of the question. We are trying to solve the software side and the IT cloud infrastructure side. So what we have done is we have built a platform. It's a term, it's called a platform as a service. It's a cloud term, which provides all the generic functionalities of space software for controlling satellites, planning operations, managing ground networks, calculating orbits, getting the telemetry, managing your security, all type of things that everybody needs to do. And we make this available as a service. So customers can build their own systems much quicker, much cheaper by using our APIs. And so we are accelerating the development and allowing them to build agile, step by step, iterating, prototyping, and then deploying their own infrastructures. And so, yeah, very happy to be here. I think the topic is key for us, security, so I'll be happy to share my views on that. Thanks.
So thank you very much. And last but not least, we actually have the Etienne Gerain, which is information security expert at Priamos, a consultancy firm focused on cybersecurity. So please tell us, introduce
Thank you, Carla.
your companies.
Yes, so my name is Etienne Gerain. I am a cybersecurity expert since 25 years. And space cybersecurity expert since 15 years. So I worked initially on Galileo as a security manager of the ground system, then also on EGNOS V3, but also EGNOS V2 as a security manager or acting as a security manager by coaching the new one. And also I work on ISIS, which is a French program led by the French Space Agency, to build a ground mission segment as a service. So since 3 years, I create an advisory company specialized in space cybersecurity, Priamos, and we are working with agencies, but also industry, operators, and the whole ecosystem of the space activities. And so now I'm happy to share also my experience and my vision on these activities based on industry experience, but also on service experience when I was supporting the builder of ISIS.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then probably we can start this time the other way around. So we keep the microphone with you, indeed, and we start about discussing the challenges. So what are the main challenges and threats in relation to cybersecurity that you are seeing in your domain of activities, and actually in your case, since you are consulting, indeed, many companies and programs, what is your view in this regard, so in terms of challenges? Thanks.
Sorry. There are plenty of challenges. Of course, what I can see in my past also is the fact that we have a very good, excellent technical experts in cybersecurity. Also, plenty of people who are very good to develop and to program a number of software. But one of the main challenge I can see is also the difficulty to the cybersecurity expert to discuss and to understand space constraints, and especially when we are discussing about safety, real time, and any other difficulties which are linked to the life cycle, also on a space program. As the life cycle is very long, we need also to anticipate any depreciation of technologies and vulnerabilities which can be found in the future and which can be very difficult to fix when the ground mission segment or the space segment are in operation. So this is one of the points. Then when we are developing some ground segment as a service, we are facing two other issues. For example, we are using an architecture which is modular, which can be generic to be then instantiated to different missions. It means that we can have some source code which can be a bit weak because it need to be generic. And sometimes we have also a dead source code, which can be also used by an attacker to be efficient to perform an attack. So there are two main these issues, and I'm sure you can find others, but I have them in my mind.
Okay, thank you very much. Then maybe you may pass the mic to Guillaume. And indeed, as a software company, so I suppose that you might, you have considered and conceived from the first place how to design a platform to be resistant, resilient to cyber attacks. But in your personal opinion, what do you see as major threats in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I love the security topic. It is both a huge challenge for us as a company and also a great opportunity as a company. Why a challenge? Because we provide a critical infrastructure for customers, right? We are offering them the ability to do a lot of great things, but of course, they have to rely on us. And it means they have to have the cloud behind, and they need to trust it. And the question is always security, security, security. So it's a challenge, but it's also a great opportunity because I believe there is a lot of pain in this domain. And I give you one example that I've seen over and over in the last 10 years that I've been doing this ground segment software, let's say, job, right? Every space mission, you have dozens, if not hundreds, of software tools to manage it. Software tool for the control of satellites, interfaces and middlewares and planning algorithms and flight dynamics things and all kind of stuff from the design to the operations. Hundreds of software tools coming from different vendors, legacy software that has been recycled from a previous mission, something that an intern has built, whatever. A lot of stuff, completely disparate, completely fragmented. And this, my view, it creates a huge threat on the security point of view because it creates a massive surface of attack, lots of entry points, different technologies that you don't know how to protect. So what do people do? They say, we cannot go to internet. We have to put everything into our basement and close the door because it's too risky. If we solve that problem, we can then use the cloud in the space industry. That's what we are doing. We are trying to streamline and organize an infrastructure, not the whole ground segment system and not the whole control center, the infrastructure to make it clean and safe and trustable that people can use and build all the scripts and tools and applications they want on top. So the keys, the data, the authentication, the encryption, the reliability, the redundancy, all this stuff is provided. And then you can build modern, cloud-based, trustable systems on top. So I think that's a great opportunity for us and for everyone. If we solve that, I think we can finally, people, use the cloud in the space industry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, just to stay on that point, we've been working a lot with European institutions, and now more and more is also important the data centers, where you store the data, where the resilience of the data are, because they are also afraid that, for different geopolitical reasons, these can be attacked for. And in your case, so you have, I suppose, as a French company, so you actually leverage what kind of cloud systems, or are they leveraging a sentence in your country? Or in Europe, or what kind of cloud infrastructure and data centers you use currently? Yeah.
Yeah, so today we are using AWS, which is an American provider, so it doesn't work for, let's say, some customers. We can leverage it to do great things. We have a lot of opportunities to do other cloud providers, of course, but let's say I see the market in three big segments. You have people who don't care, and they just love the cloud, and they don't have really security requirements that much, and great. On the other side, you have pure government military operators who, for obvious good reasons, don't need or don't want the cloud, right? And I would even say, even if they could use it, it's almost political. I cannot use it. And then you have everyone in between. People who think, I'm not sure if I can have it as a sovereign infrastructure. I'm not sure. That's where also we come in to help them out. And we have seen customers who came to us at the beginning. They said, I love your tech, but I cannot do AWS. And yeah, they can, and they do. It's okay. We have a lot of workarounds to explain and show that you can have a sovereign infrastructure. You can encrypt your data with external keys. We are here talking with, CYSAT. I've launched a new product for this. There are a lot of capabilities that exist to actually do this. And once you do that, you can leverage the power of the cloud and deploy everywhere in all the regions, replicate at scale, scale up, scale down, optimize your cost, and do a lot of great things.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the answer. Then, Stefan, so please, from your standpoint, what are the main...
Of course, many of the pain points are always the same, and I don't want to repeat what was already said. I just want to reiterate a bit that the big problem is also just language and just how we can count security. For example, we all here probably, we are really involved in security. We know it's a problem we have to solve, but we just can't tell our customers where are we really. So how can we put this in good words? Because there's so many words we can probably not agree on which one to use. How can we grade security? And so how can we really do these difficult trade-offs that were talked about? We have the usability and also the security requirements. How can we do this trade-off if nobody's really know what are they actually talking about and they're not speaking the same language? So I think we are doing a good thing here. We're raising awareness and talking about the problems, and so we will hopefully be able to solve them.
Yeah, very good point. So indeed, creating awareness is very important in order then to avoid that actually big problems happen in the future. And just to stay on your, so we have seen yesterday big discussions around standardization, right? And as you said, the common language and these things. You want to spend any words on that specific aspects from, yeah?
Yes, and we have this pretty much solved, I think, to a large extent solved in standardization, where we really have high requirements. I mean, the BSI is over there, and we've worked with them on a very good sort of standardization for satellite security. We still need something like this on the other end, that was also mentioned, where the people don't really care. Well, yeah, I probably need security, but really just give me a satellite or a service. And we really need to solve this problem also on this corner of the market.
An harmonized standard. So, Gerardo, from your point, so what kind of threats and challenges you see for your specific domain of activities?
Yes. The main thing is that with a constellation as a service, many customers will be sharing satellites. So that's the back of the question, right? How can we make our customers and users sure that they can trust the security of the systems? That it's like when you go to a SaaS system in internet, and you care whether your data is stored on the same place as other customers. So for our constellation as a service and our satellite buyers, we give them many tools so they can grow the trust they need in the systems and us, right? So for example, some customers get their own operation center, though we keep, especially for constellation as a service, we keep maintaining the satellites alive, updating the software every week, and making sure the satellites work. They operate the payloads, right? Their main concern is really about the data, privacy, and integrity, and actually about what they do with the satellites. So what we offer them is their operations center, where they can choose what our satellites capture, right? Our satellites do imaging, so where they care of having privacy on where they are imaging, for example. So we give them a planning tool that allows to plan the use of the constellation, and they encrypt their plans, at their premises with the keys, the private keys of each of the satellites they're going to use. So it's only the satellites with their TPMs and crypto hardware support, it's only the satellites that can decrypt their plans. So they don't need to trust us anymore in that sense. It doesn't matter how we wrote the plans, they encrypted to the satellites. They can be sure that nobody in the middle can read or alter the plans, right? So this gives them some trust on the ground stations we use, on our operators, and help them trust that the path of their data is safe. Then once satellites produce results, customers have the option to encrypt the results exclusively for their private keys. So again, nobody in the middle can see the data, regardless how many hops in the middle the data goes through, right? And then additionally, we give them the tools to validate the integrity and authenticity of the data, as the satellites themselves sign the data with their keys, which are certified by a trust chain, so they can be sure the keys are correct and that the data is coming unaltered from the satellites. So what we give them, data security, in my opinion, you don't do with guns, you do with crypto, really. So we give them the crypto tools to validate the integrity and privacy of the data, right? But then around that, we need to do a lot more, right? We need to secure our operations in the ground so nobody can take over a satellite. So we do all the rest that any tech company needs to do. It's challenging, it's a lot of things. Security usually breaks on the smallest details, right? So you need to keep doing it, updating, upgrading, learning, improving. So the main challenge is for us, I would say, for the constellation as a service, was to find an architecture that I briefly described, waving my hand, so that the customers can trust what we do and the data, and also all that's around that, so it makes sense, right? So it's two things, like regular security and this particular piece in the as a service, constellation as a service, right?
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Giovanni, what is your your point of view on these emerging challenges in relation to cybersecurity indeed?
Yeah, well, they already explained basically all of the challenges. On our side, we have also more of a, apart cybersecurity, we also need to overcome the physical security because we have infrastructure. In some ways, they are both combined. Well, there are different ways to do that. But I believe when apart from that, one good point is actually when we talk about cybersecurity with customers, at least, we need to have a really throughout discussion because it's really on the details on how you interface with a certain infrastructure, how you interface with software, that you actually can understand if the architecture works for with the interface that you have and so on. For example, talking about the data sovereignty. On our side, we use the cloud for what we call our NCE, the Network Cloud Engine, but it's basically for our own tools. So our own management, our own orchestrator, and so on. The data for TTNC, for example, pass through the cloud, but it's not stored, it's just a service that we use to move things around. So it really doesn't matter where it is located. Of course, we have different possibilities to locate these broker in different data centers if we want to, but it doesn't matter because we don't store the data. So this is all left to our customers, so they can choose to have it in AWS, in Azure, OVH, wherever they own on-prem. So we need to get to this kind of details with customer, and not just saying, yes, I want to have, your solution needs to be cyber secure. That doesn't mean anything. So we really need to get to this kind of details and discussion, and in some cases also, push the customer to implement at least some cybersecurity practices and to be aligned with our architecture. That at least we try to design architecture to be, I will not say safe because safe doesn't mean anything, but at least to work and to have a process actually to get more and more safe.
No, thank you very much. That's indeed very important. And can you share any sort of lessons learned or any anecdotes that, if something happened and how you solved it, or that would be interesting for the audience or the rest of the panel as well? So that would be nice, if you may.
Well, more anecdotes is like, when we started actually doing operation, I believe we have like really one customer actually asking how we handle the data, how to interact with us, if they needed to share the keys on the data packets with us or not. So just one customer. Right now, I believe this changed also after last year, after Ukraine and the CYSAT hacking and everything, is getting more and more of a natural request. And in some cases, it's a real request to actually get into details and how it's implementation. So I believe the main change has been really in the last year, that because we have seen that assets are vulnerable, and assets, especially for the new space, actually start to provide commercial services. So they start to be actually interesting for attackers, and that's the main difference, I believe, with respect to at least a few years ago, at least in the new space, where it was mainly technology demonstration. So it was definitely not interesting for attackers. Now there is more and more interest. We need to keep both eyes open on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Giovanni. So, Gerardo, from your standpoint, first of all, have you ever received an attack to your constellation satellites or in any form? and eventually how you solve the problem or any suggestions you might provide?
Sadly not. I mean, or luckily not. I don't know. Because, yeah, when you do security, you prepare for that, and it's hard to see if what you're doing is good or not, right? So real world attacks detected and blocked would be interesting. No, but no, not really. I think we do have some means to detect, really, some attacks, some things to the satellites, I'm saying, and we haven't seen any. What we see is really regular attacks. Today, the front line of even the most sophisticated attackers is phishing, and we do see phishing attempts, and we do see some targeted phishing attempts, right? Because through phishing, the attacker gets directly into the inner circle, right? If it's successful, and gets credentials, and then does a CYSAT attack, right? So yes, we see that, and we did see a few directed attacks, both to the industry in general. There were some attack campaigns to the satellite industry, for example, with very tempting job offers, disguising malware, space job offers, and then some directed to us. And then we see what we believe is regular attack patterns in the net. So luckily, I cannot share a more interesting anecdote, right, in that sense, no. But they will eventually come, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is good. And then also, you know, I know that more and more now, in fact, there will be use of, and there is already, you know, big use of new space satellites also for military or to support the military requirements. And therefore, there is going to be indeed more and more important to make sure that you have a resilient.
Yeah, we actually see a trend, as Giovanni was saying, in the customers asking more about security lately. It's also because we're talking to more the defense and intelligence and government customers, right? But even them get more interesting questions. Like the other day, somebody asked me, a customer, but are your certificates self-signed or not? All right, which shows that they start to care about the details, and this is interesting. So I do see a trend in that the customers are requesting more security features, and the things actually work, right? So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Then, Stefan, would you like to share any, from your standpoint, any lessons learned on?
Well, we don't have dedicated satellite attacks. It's the same. It's basically phishing and all the regular attacks. And I think we get a lot of them because we are also involved in the large government contracts. So that is to be expected. But maybe as a general, my point of view to security, so I used to work in embedded systems and also in ships and submarines. And every time I hear satellites are special, I'm sort of getting shaky, because at the end of the day, they're computers in space. And I've heard these kind of excuses also in embedded systems. They're special, we don't need to do security. That's gone out of the window. And yeah, also many other industries, cars, for example, had to accept, yes, security is important. What I'm doing here in my car radio, it's not irrelevant, what I'm doing. And so, yeah, it's the same in satellites. We have to use them more and more as computers in space and try to do our best in security and don't play this special card all that often. It still has its place, but it can't be played all the time.
Okay, that's definitely very interesting indeed. Guillaume, so from your, indeed, so as a software platform, any experience in that regard, or lessons learned, or recommendations that you would like to give for your future clients or existing clients?
I mean, a few years ago, we were all saying, the new space operators, they don't really care about security because, it's commercial, whatever. It's not the case anymore. Now everyone cares. And I see probably because, space is becoming democratized and commercialized, but still the end customer is very often government. And even if you provide a commercial service, half of your customers or more will be government. And more, I see my own customers telling me, okay, at the beginning I will operate myself, but at some point I may want to sell this to government customer. And though I need to have a very strong story for security. And so I really see a trend in the last 2 years, 3 years, and more in the future, where these questions of sovereignty and security are becoming more and more. And so I can give you some examples of what we do for that. So we have a cloud service that we call Teams and Roles, which is one of the ones we sell the most, to be honest, across all the things we have. It's to centralize all your security permissions and authentications. So you can define policies of what someone can do, what he cannot do, what data he can access, what resource he can access, what satellite he can see, what widget he can access, and so on and so forth. And then you can define roles and teams. It's very simple, and you can apply that. And that means that when you develop an entire ground segment, all these applications, all these scripts and tools and whatnot, they can just use this cloud service to register and know this user wants to do this, yes or no. So we delegate to this service this, permission and authentication capability. And that's sounds simple, but it's extremely valuable because you centralize across your entire infrastructure the security rules of access. Another one we just released, which also is very, I think, a success so far, is the route service, which is to move data, define, let's say, flows of data from ground station to the cloud to different facilities, define connectors and processing steps, and people use it for encryption. We didn't think so much about it at the beginning, but people use it a lot for encryption because then they can run their own encryption processes on their premise, still making use of the cloud, having this kind of key management facilities and stuff outside, defining different processing steps. It's very, very powerful, very easy. And again, it's a hit because security is the fundamental key now. And so again, makes no sense to rebuild everything. You have very good solutions that can be used. And so my recommendation is look at it.
Of course, we will. So again, so from your standpoint, would you like to provide your viewpoint and indeed any experience with your clients in that regard?
Yes. A few years ago, I worked with the company. It is not linked to space, but I just wanted to introduce it. They wanted to manage their main sensitive data in a public cloud. It was a great challenge, but it was feasible at the end, even if plenty of security experts were disappointed and didn't want to address this point. In fact, it is possible. So on other service missions, it is also feasible. But not, we need to address this point correctly, and for that I have only 3 words as a conclusion. I will explain them. The first one is, of course, we need to build a secured architecture. This is really important. We need to build, to implement the principle of defense in depth. We need also to apply security by default, by design, which is really important. We need also to use cryptographic tools and algorithms which will be robust in the future. So we need probably address quantum cryptographic. This is the first word, architecture, security, secured architecture. The second one is because the architecture is good but not sufficient, we need also to perform a security risk analysis. This analysis needs to be performed at least as design. We need to think about the future, what we want to perform, what we want to build. and to ensure that the security risks are correctly addressed. And then when it is built, we need to reperform also a security risk analysis as built in order to be sure that what we have designed and built is also correctly secured. So the second word is analysis, of course, because yes, and also the risk analysis need to be performed both with security experts, but also with users or representatives of users. This is the way to perform a trade-off between users' benefits and security stakes. And the last word for me is accreditation. The accreditation is, of course, the best way to be sure that we provide security assurance and we build a secured architecture which is really in line with analysis and what we want to do or what we don't want to do, what we don't want to address, what are and this is a way to perform to ensure that the trade-off is correctly performed. And then as part of the accreditation, we have also security audits, which need to be performed both on the operational platforms, but also on developer platform and operators and all the whole ecosystem. So 3 words: architecture, analysis, and accreditation. Thank you.
Very good, and thank you for the summary. So I would probably elaborate a bit on that. In the meantime, if the audience would like to ask any questions, please post on the application. For the time being, I don't see here. But anyway, so elaborating on that, so you said a very important point, we heard yesterday as well, security by design. So there is this trade-off indeed, so you, as a new space company, for example, Satellogic can be a case, but also Leafspace and indeed Leanspace. I mean, Leanspace probably focused on software as well, but meaning defining an architecture and by design secure. Does it have any impacts on addressing the user benefits and being faster and be economically viable? What are, the trade-offs you have to perform, and if any, how does that impact your value proposition?
Well, it could impact actually pricing or whatever, but it's like reliability, the customers and operators needs to, yes, look at pricing. And especially in new space, one of the issues that we had initially in the new space market was that we were totally focused on reducing CapEx, okay? Or focus on CapEx, not really looking at OpEx. And then once you start actually operating a company, you find out that OpEx is what eats your cash flow and whatever. So the thing is that you could actually choose, okay, let's not really focus on cybersecurity, let's have, whatever on that side. But then you find out that you're spending much more because you need to recover from attacks, you need to recover from issues, or you need to redesign your architecture once a customer comes in and say, yeah, I can come to you because it's interesting, but I need to have these secure things. So you really need to think it at the start, let's say, when you started with a new product and so on. We did it on our side, really, as Raffaele was explaining before, really looking at how we handle the data plane with the customer, how we handle our own control plane, and so also have 2 different ways of moving that data and requesting the customer to have data coming to us really already encrypted and authenticated, so we don't look at it. And even if we wanted, or an attacker want to attack us, they cannot get so they can get the data, but they cannot get actually information out of it unless they attack also the user. So it's definitely more complicated. And this was really set up from the start and drive also where we were actually stopping on the baseband processing, for example. So you need to have it by design, and I believe that right now we are more understanding the benefits of actually doing by design. So you're not losing time, you're not losing money doing it. It's definitely something that you will actually maybe earn or return on investment later on. But you need to have that in mind that at some point some shit will happen, so you need to have that in mind.
Indeed, so thank you for your standpoint. And Gerardo, would you like to bring your experience in this regard? So security by design, your point of view.
Yes. In a new company, when you start doing stuff, that's when you design things. Or in an old company, when you do new stuff, right? You usually want to get fast to the results, to showing something, to, if it's a new company, showing that you can do what you're saying you want to do, to maybe get funding or get a grant or get something that allows you to continue, right? So in that mindset, anything that might make things slower is usually left to the side. And that includes many times security or even proper development practices or proper architecture, right? And I understand that, but then, as Giovanni was saying, you're probably going to pay a higher price later, especially if you have to redesign and re-architecture and then go all the way back down to the bottom and start again. So in that sense, I think one option, which is what we did actually when we started, is to design so you don't need to redesign later, right? It's to have in mind that you're going to have to do security, that you're going to have to do things later, crypto or device security or whatever it is, and leave space in your design for that. Like if you're doing hardware, make sure your processor will be able to handle the crypto. If you are doing networking, make sure your protocols are going to support crypto and you don't have to change the protocols. If you are exposing an API, make sure you're going to be able to do proper authentication, authorization, even if you don't do it now, right? So I think that's the least you should do when you start, even if you want to cut all the things that get you fast to demonstration, but allow you to then grow on top of that without having to redo it all, right? This is what we did, and I was waiting until we could, and we had the chance to actually go back and take these spaces we left empty for doing security and actually starting doing security on top of that. So I don't know, that's an option.
Yeah, very, very, very good option indeed, in fact, and also to manage the trade-offs, which is always important. So would you like to share your point of view in that regard, of course, from a connectivity perspective?
It's really difficult to add something to this because I also think that's really the middle part, the central part. You need to have this design, or at least, if it's not perfect, it needs to be prepared for security. So, yeah, what you can add to this. What's very important, what people like to forget, is all the adversarial view. Engineers always like to look from an engineering perspective. They, of course, want to build satellite, a working satellite. And it sounds really primitive, but it's often important to take the look of the adversary or to just hire someone who can do this as a penetration tester, even if it's just in a small, take a look at the design and give me your ideas. Because he will have a different viewpoint, and he will find corners in the design where he's, hey, this, maybe I can work with this, that an engineer from his perspective never thought about. So.
Indeed. Do you have do you want to add anything on the point of accreditation? So if you have anything to react. So what Etienne has mentioned as a relevant point, indeed, we have seen also yesterday, and we've spoken about standardization, certification, etc. What is your view on that specific aspect in terms of accreditation, in fact?
Yes, like I said before, it's mostly this accreditation goes towards this very high level of security. So it's definitely good to have this in mind, to maybe go for an accreditation later. And it's also important to just prepare some paperwork. That's also a bit of an easy win. Engineers like to leave behind just to have some security paperwork. And even if it's just a few pages, what are my architectural thoughts about security?
Yeah.
that I can then use maybe to have some, yes, okay, accreditation later. And yes, that's mostly it. I don't really see a good view in Leanspace to go directly for the accreditation because we are not yet there, but always keep it in mind. So you have it as an option later and just prepare
In fact,
something.
I like that, kind of different opinion, indeed. So from Guillaume, so your point of view on, of course, security by design and eventually accreditation. So you're sent in your service provisioning, I suppose, for certain of your services are secure by design, others less. But please give us your point of view on that.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about what our customers are doing, right? So we have customers who are operating EO satellites, so they are building constellations for Earth observation. Others are doing in-space services, so they are removing debris, or they are moving satellites to other orbits with OTVs, or they are doing life extension. We have customers who are on the SATCOM market with IoT constellations. We have people building rockets, So all these people, they have very different use cases, very different missions, very different assets, and very different security requirements. They are in different countries, 7 countries today already. So they come to Leanspace because they don't want to rebuild the whole thing. They don't want to reinvent the wheel again and again. Because when you do the security by design of your ground segment, it's a big effort. You need to really understand the whole picture, all the data, all the scalability, all the security, physical and virtual, and machines and networks and all that stuff. It's not just to buy an encryption tool or whatever. No, it's the ground segment architecture, which has to be secure by design, whatever that means. So they don't want anymore to do this. They want to own and know how they have secured their mission, how it is safe, but they don't want to reinvent the whole thing. So they come to Leanspace because we are providing this infrastructure. We have raised 10 million euros so far in the last 3 years. All this money is going to build this platform. This is our core business. That's what we do. We are not a satellite company who is trying to sell their software control. We build this platform, we make it extremely good, very efficient, very secure, very reliable. We provide SLAs, that's our thing. So customers come to us to solve these problems and to build the ground segment, leveraging the cloud, which is secure by design. And of course, they have to do things on top. They have to architect their own, let's say, layer, but they can leverage what we have built and what we provide.
Okay, very, very, very interesting. And then probably as a last point, unless there are other questions from the audience and for our 5 minutes before concluding the session. In the end, what are, in your view, the weakest link in all this chain of data and information that we go from a mission perspective, like, for example, Satellogic provide, or from the specific ground segment perspective, in your standpoint, what are the weakest link where you are most preoccupied that eventually can be broken one day from a cybersecurity attack? I would be curious to know. You want to start? Gerardo? Probably?
Let me at least start. I believe in the whole chain of operating a presence, a constellation, the weakest link is, in my opinion, the people. I mean, there are vulnerabilities and security problems in systems, but these are somehow easier to fix and be fixed. Now, people need to be educated, so you need to care about their understanding of the role in the security of the whole. You need to do awareness on how they should work to protect the company and the customers, right? again, phishing is one of such examples, but then password management and even practices, right? Sending things on email or how you use the systems and where you use the systems. So I think people, in a sense, is one of the weakest links, right? And then if I have to think on technology, I would say the other major problem is the complexity of the systems we are building and so many interconnected parts working together, diverse from different vendors, as you were saying earlier, trying to be integrated. And in every interface, there's an opportunity for an attacker to change the input and control the input, which is pretty much the tools of the attackers, right? Control the input to the systems to make the systems do things unintended in a way, right? So the complexity, I think, it's the other weak link. It's I don't know. It's weird, weak link, right? But I think, and I think the complexity is inherent to the problem we are solving. So we have to learn to live with the complexity and manage it. I don't know if
yeah, it's a very good point. Anyone else would like to contribute with a last statement on this?
Well, totally agree that the weakest point is on people. It's, you know, it always happens that you have someone opening a phishing email or replying to an email that they should not reply, and you know that's the main entrance, I believe, for an attack. I can give you this anecdote. It's not totally unrelated to space. My girlfriend's father worked in a big fashion company, and they were totally put down by an attack a few years ago because the attacker actually entered through open laptop with active VPN, and then they get into that. They delete all the data of all accounting for like. The attack, I believe, was early 2020, and they delete everything down to 2016. So nothing for 4 years of that. And this happened through a laptop that was open. So, you know, that's the main thing. We have a good joke that we do at the company once one leave their laptop open that we put some nice screenshots on that and so on. So we make fun of that. But you know, that's how you need to really educate people to avoid such kind of things. And most of the cases are really simple. So you can find out it's a phishing email. At least it's not really sophisticated. You can close your laptop, put the password, whatever. But you need to do that.
Okay, very good. Anyone else want to contribute? Guillaume, you have yours? So fine. Otherwise, we...
Yeah, maybe, I mean,
yes,
just maybe to...
please.
You kind of stole my point, but it's okay. And I think the complexity indeed is very fundamental. Space is hard, space is very complex, and we are still, even in the new space era, we are still doing space missions like 30 years ago, because we are reinventing the wheel, architecting from scratch, again and again. Other industries, they have solved that, and we are still doing it. So I think we have to change it, and by changing this, you can really leverage, you know, as a service providers like us, like others, and not only have a satellite as a service, but also infrastructure providers that you can trust. So once you solve the complexity, I think security increases drastically.
Very good point. So Etienne, your last statement, and as well as Stefan, please.
There are plenty challenges related to these activities and related to a new space field. What I can see since 15 years I work on space is the older industries are facing to these complexities, and since a while they are really trained and mature on to perform this kind of activity. However, the current industry are not fully address the new space. This is also the reason you are here also. So what I can identify is the new space should, I believe that the new space actors should be inspired by the process already in place in the industries, even if a number of processes are very complex also, and these processes should be degrees or simplified to be more efficient.
Thank you, Etienne. So just last couple of words because they're calling us.
Yes, I will absolutely keep it short, but to come to the rescue of people, what we also have to acknowledge is that people will always be the weakest link. So just having this picture on the wall to make people think twice, no, I should not keep my laptop open. That's absolutely important, even if it seems obvious.
So thank you all very much, and thanks for a nice discussion. So probably if you have any questions, or our panelists will be having a nice coffee now with you. So thanks again, and have a good continuation of the conference.
Thank you.